Now, today I actually came across something very different today, and it is something that it's quite strange, very, very strange. And this is something that was really happening in my country, Kenya, today. Now, for those who do not know Kenya, Kenya is a country in Africa that is actually located in East Africa. And Kenya is well known for its safaris, and is also known for the best performing very well in Olympics, especially in the long distance running. And currently also Kenya has become very famous in their what we call the online defense force, the Kenya online defense force. Those are as replicated by the KOTs. Those are Kenyans on Twitter and Kenyans on TikTok. And at the same time also it is well known because one time they had an issue with CNN. I don't know what CNN did. They spoke something about Kenya, and that was the time when President Obama was coming and they reported something very negative about Kenya. Now, one of the greatest things that in Kenya also you'll be able to understand is that the system is well designed in a way that it has allowed its citizens to convene, what we call to convene freely, where they call them People's Parliament. In Swahili, they will call them Bunge la Mwananchi. That is where now people will actually converge as a community and discuss over issues or things that are actually affecting the common man, And at times after they've discussed, what they will do is that they will write every point down and forward these points to the national parliament, whereby the national parliament will pick a few of the points and discuss them in the national parliament so that the government can actually implement laws, policies, and regulations on how things can be done. It could be matters to do with business, could be matters to do with employment, and most of the time is that these things are being discussed from the People's Parliament, that is Bunge la Mwananchi. And then after that, they are taken to, they have their own chairman, they have their president, it's called Bunge la Mwananchi president. They have their own secretary. It's a well-organized kind of a system that it is countrywide, because the Bunge la Mwananchi, that is People's Parliament, is always countrywide. And this is whereby people will come together and discuss over things. And then after that, if they feel like they want to write a petition, they will write a petition and forward these things to the parliament. And then the parliament clerk will look at it and discuss it with the speaker. And then after that, they will draft it in a parliamentary language. And then from there, it will be brought as a bill in the parliament. But in actual sense, those bills, they originate from the People's Parliament. Okay, the common mwananchi, common man down there. Now, recently something happened because a lot of Kenyans are not happy with the current, so-called government today. They are not actually happy because of how things are. And the reason is, the reason as to why they are not happy, one thing, it's because the person that is in power right now promised a lot of young people, he gave a lot of promises. And the young people are kind of like impatient because they feel that their promises are not being fulfilled. And one of the key promises was about employment. And they feel like we are not actually getting employment, and life is becoming so difficult. The economy has become so difficult. So this has been the same language of the politicians. After every election year, they will come, tell us very good words, promise us the moon, and then after 5 years, they disappear. Then after 5 years, they come back again with another story and all that. And some of you heard of a great strike that was organized by the GNZ. Those are young generations, the GNZ, those are young generations. They organized actually a countrywide strike with the use of only social media. And it was bad. It was actually bad. They ended up even storming the parliament, and some of the parts of the parliament were actually burnt. That was actually a history in the making, because it has never happened in Kenya. Something like that has never happened in Kenya. That was history in the making with what we call the GNZs. Now, recently, the person who was officiating the elections just passed. I think it was 2-3 days ago. He just passed away. And these people of Bunge la Mwananchi felt that this man, the chairman of the electoral committee, he's the one that actually was responsible of ensuring that the current government is in power. So they were so bitter with that man, to an extent that when he died, this is how they expressed their feelings, and for you to understand, Kenyans are very free people. We have a very strong democracy in this country. A lot of people are aware of their rights. They understand their constitution very well. And Kenyans are people who know themselves. They understand themselves very well. And these are some of the reactions of the people in the People's Parliament. This is what they were talking about the former chairperson of the electoral board. That is the chairperson that has just passed away. This is what they were talking about. Just listen to what they're saying.
Wacha nianzie na mambo ya Chebukati, alafu nikuje hiyo mambo ingine. Wacha nianzie na mambo ya Chebukati, alafu nikuje hii mambo ingine ya mambo ya foreign affairs. Sikuweza kula, kwa hivyo kama unataka niongeze sauti niulie chakula. Mimi nataka kusema hivi, Chebukati Mungu amekubaliana sisi ile ambayo tulikuwa tumeomba. Mimi sitaki niseme kitu ambaye niwafurahishe, na kama mnataka niwafurahishe naweza kuambia story ya kuwafurahisha. Kwa matendo ambayo aliyotenda, ukweli ya Mwenyezi Mungu, tuliomba Mungu amuondoe na mambo ya punishment tukiona. Na kweli kwangu as a person nimeshukuru Mungu, kwa sababu kitu ya kwanza huyu jamaa ateseke na mwisho akufe. Huwezi kuniambia watoto 70 unaweza kulinganisha uhai wake na mzee babu kama ule ambaye ana tamaa ya pesa. Hiyo ni funzo kwa wengine ambao wanastahili kuwa na tabia kama hiyo, wajaribu kujifundisha. Kumbukeni mtu alikuwa anaitwa Chesoni, alienda kujimalizia pale Hilton kwa sababu ya tabia kama hii. Ikafuata mtu anaitwa Kibuito, aliondokewa na familia yake yote, ni jirani yangu nyumbani, na mwishowe akaenda akafuata nani? Isaac Hassan. Nadhani hata ni Mungu amemhurumia. Ndio kakuja Chebukati kwa mambo aliyotamka na kwenda kujificha hivyo tu, naye Mungu akamvicha, akakuwa ni wa kuanika, kutolewa. Kwa hivyo kwa uvuvi, sasa ile Mungu ametufanyia mazuri, tumshukuru. Simple clear. Hii mambo mengine mimi sitaki niseme.
You can see the gentleman there. He looks to me like he's an activist, and that is what People's Parliament in Kenya is all about. You can see the way they've stood there, and one person is given time at a time to speak of their minds, and they speak what they feel. Now, the topic here was about this former chairman of the Electoral Commission. The name, as you can hear, is calling him the name Chebukati. And the guy is so much disappointed there. He's disappointed, and he's saying that this man actually gave us a wrong government, because what we voted for, it is not what he had announced. So the peoples, they feel betrayed. They feel betrayed because what the people had voted for, it is not exactly what the chairman actually announced. That is according to them, and they are actually expressing bitter sentiments there. For anyone who understands Swahili, they will tell you this man is bitter relative to what he's actually saying. Now, Chebukati passed away, and instead of actually issuing what we call condolences, the guy here is saying then let him go. That is a punishment from the Lord, and we've been praying for that this man should go. Let him suffer and then die. And they feel like God has answered their prayer. Now, the reason as to why, my wonderful brothers and sisters, I wanted to share this thing is that at times we may be bitter with the things. We may be bitter with things, either because somebody did some things to us, or either because some systems are not working the way we want them to. And at times, we will, because of our bitterness, we will feel like, why can't God just punish these people? You know, why can't God just punish these people? Why? Because at times we tend to look at things relative to our own thinking and in our own perspective. And when we have that perspective, at times we think that is also the perspective of God. It is the perspective of God. You know, God is so loving, God is so forgiving. But him being loving and him being forgiving, it doesn't mean that he compromises. He is very strict with his word. And when he speaks, he cannot actually, change his will. He can't change his will. And from what I'm seeing here is that these people actually were hurt. They were bitter and they felt they were so much betrayed by what happened, even though it is not clear as to whoever really won, because the Constitution says that whoever is announced by the chairman of the commission, that is of the Electoral Commission, that one, he is the one that carries the day. And at the end of it all, Mr. Chebukati had announced the current president as the winner. Now, as to whether he had shortchanged things or wherever, there is no evidence. People went to court. Of course, we understand courts are also political. They are subject of manipulation. And the citizens were bitter because they also felt that the court was also manipulated by the very, very people who are now in power. You know, and these are some of the sentiments that are very crazy. Now, I learned a lesson here, and listen to what the Spirit was teaching me here. The Spirit taught me that the Lord rejoices in free spirits. He rejoices in an environment where people are free to express themselves freely. And that's why you look at the nations which have actually, are granted freedom of religion and freedom of speech. Look at the development capacity of these nations. These nations have really made it in life. And one of the key principle or example that we can have, you look at a country like the United States of America. I don't know about it now, but then in the days of President Bush, in the days of President Bush Sr., that is, in the days of President Ronald Reagan, America was America. That was the time the US of A was actually the US of A, because of freedom of speech and recognizing religion, recognizing religion. Because you cannot speak of freedom of speech and you are shutting down religion. Because religion is actually the key indicator of what freedom of speech is all about. Now, if you're shutting down religion and then you claim that people should actually speak freely, but when you do not want religious leaders actually to express themselves freely, what do you expect? And that is why some of these things must actually be considered. One thing I thank God for my country, Kenya, even though we may have our own challenges, and as young as a nation is. But one thing I thank God is that the leaders of this nation were inspired enough for them to realize the essence of worshiping God freely and the essence of granting its citizens the freedom of worship and freedom of expression. And it is out of this expression that people are becoming more creative in tapping into different talents for them to actually make a living out of this, and that is so powerful of it. That is really, really powerful. I truly commend. There is a saying that somebody used to say that I may not agree with you, but I will protect your right to speak what you're speaking. Even though I may not actually agree with you, but I'll protect your right to speak what you're speaking. Okay? The rights of people must be protected. The rights of people must actually be taken as sacred, because life is sacred and all of us are children of our Heavenly Father. Even though we may have different elasticity, we may have different ways of expressing ourselves, we may have different ways of seeing things, but you see, those rights must be respected. And one thing is that we must know that we are all children of our Heavenly Father, and the Lord really rejoices in actually seeing His children worshiping Him freely, and actually they can express themselves in whatever manner they want. But that one does not mean that you play around with the sacredness of our Heavenly Father. You don't joke with the sacredness of our Heavenly Father. Yeah, so this is actually the People's Parliament, and what I'm learning here is that it is because of the spirit of our forefathers that placed this right of freedom of worship and freedom of speech that has actually enabled our brothers and sisters be able actually to gain the confidence that they can have for them to be able to express themselves freely. And then out of that also, those who are creative enough, that is where they get their creativity. Out of people's parliaments. That is where they get their creativity, because I'm told M-Pesa, that is the mobile money transfer, was an idea that was actually conceived within the Bunge la Mwananchi, within the People's Parliament, because somebody was actually talking about it, and somebody took it and went and implemented it, and after implementing it, he actually partnered with one of the mobile companies in Kenya, and that mobile company, that is Safaricom, made it bigger, okay, so that Kenyans can transfer money using their phones freely. They can transfer money using their phones. I think money transfers is big in Kenya. That is it's called M-Pesa. M-Pesa simply stands for Mobile Pioneer. I think it's mobile what? Mobile pesa in Swahili means money. So M-Pesa means mobile pesa and mobile money transfer. But there is it's actually an acronym of something. Mobile Pioneer, Pioneering Electronic, I don't know, something like that. It was an acronym of something very big, but it simply means M-Pesa, mobile money transfer, which is big, and it was actually discovered in Kenya. That is through Bunge la Mwananchi. That is the People's Parliament. So countries need to actually leave their people exercise their freedom freely. And that is how God really works. That is how God really works. And even in the church has given its people freedom to, express themselves freely. And you can see even in those classes, when we're in classes, people will express themselves freely, and the Spirit of God will flow. And once the Spirit of God flows, that is where each one of us is edified. We are able to understand what the Lord so requires of us. And one thing I want to commend the government of Kenya for allowing people to actually have their freedom of speech and expressing themselves freely. It's actually very, very important and very good. Otherwise, thank you very much. God bless you. And I'm looking forward to see you again next time. Have a great day. Be blessed.